Welcome back to English Fun Podcast with the topic sharing experiences to get good English. I'm your host, Jennifer, and today I have an exciting guest joining us from Japan, Naomi. We're going to dive into how sharing experiences can help you improve your English skills. Hi, Naomi. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad to have you here.
Hi, Jennifer. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to share my experiences today.
Absolutely. Let's start by having you introduce yourself to our listeners. Tell us a bit about where you're from and your journey with English.
Of course. So, I'm Naomi, and I'm from Tokyo, Japan. I started learning English in school when I was about 10 years old. Initially, I found it quite difficult. However, over the years, I've found that sharing my experiences and connecting with others has really helped me improve my English.
That's fantastic. It's interesting to hear how your journey began. What specifically about sharing experiences helped you become more proficient in English?
I think it's the interaction part. When I share my experiences, it becomes more of a conversational practice rather than a formal learning session. For example, when I traveled to the United States a couple of years ago, I made a lot of friends there. We exchanged stories about our cultures, food, and hobbies. Practicing in such a relaxed environment made me more comfortable speaking English.
That sounds like a wonderful experience. How did those conversations improve your language skills?
For one, I learned new vocabulary and expressions in context. Hearing how native speakers used certain phrases helped me understand their meanings better. Plus, it boosted my confidence since my friends were patient and encouraging.
Confidence is so important when learning a new language. Were there any specific topics you found easier or more enjoyable to discuss in English?
Definitely. I love talking about food. Japan has such a rich culinary tradition, and sharing my favorite dishes and recipes allowed me to engage with others. I could learn about their local dishes too, which naturally made for lively conversations.
Food is a universal language. Did you encounter any language barriers or humorous misunderstandings while sharing those experiences?
Oh, absolutely. There was one time when I invited my American friends to try a traditional Japanese dish called natto. It's fermented soybeans and has quite a strong smell. Most of my friends were a bit hesitant, and their reactions were priceless. I think it's very important to laugh off those moments. They helped me learn about cultural differences too.
That's such a fun story, Naomi. Embracing those moments makes learning so much more enjoyable. Have you ever participated in language exchange programs to further your English?
I have. I took part in a language exchange in Tokyo, where I met some English-speaking friends who wanted to learn Japanese. We would spend half the time chatting in English and the other half in Japanese. It was a great way to practice.
A language exchange sounds like such an enriching experience. What advice would you give our listeners who might want to seek similar opportunities?
I suggest looking for local groups or online platforms that facilitate language exchanges. It's also a good idea to approach it with an open mind. Don't worry about making mistakes. The goal is to communicate and learn from each other.
That's wonderful advice. Many learners often feel intimidated by the prospect of making mistakes. How do you overcome that fear when speaking?
I try to remind myself that everyone makes mistakes, regardless of their language ability. I focus on the message I want to convey rather than perfect grammar. In fact, I've learned more from my mistakes than from my correct answers.
That's an excellent perspective. Speaking of learning from mistakes, do you have a memorable moment when something went hilariously wrong in a conversation?
Oh, yes. I once wanted to say, "I am so hungry," but accidentally said, "I am so angry." My friends looked at me confused. We all laughed, and it became a running joke. It turned out to be a great lesson in clarity and pronunciation.
That's a perfect example of how humor can help us learn. Now, outside of conversational practice, are there any other methods you've used to improve your English?
Yes, definitely. I love watching English movies and series with subtitles. It helps me relate spoken language to visual context. I also listen to music and try to understand the lyrics. It's a fun way to familiarize myself with different accents and slang.
Those are excellent strategies. Combining media with learning makes the process so much more engaging. Do you have any favorite movies or songs that especially helped you along the way?
I really enjoyed watching Forrest Gump. The dialogue is clear, and the story is heartwarming. As for music, I love listening to Taylor Swift. Her lyrics tell such vivid stories, and I find them quite relatable.
Great choices. Movies and music can definitely enhance language learning. Lastly, what's your ultimate goal with your English learning journey?
I'd love to become fluent so I can travel more and connect with people worldwide. I want to share Japan's culture and, of course, continue learning about theirs.
That's a wonderful goal, Naomi. It's clear you have a passion for sharing and connecting. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing your experiences with us. I'm sure our listeners have gained valuable insights from your journey.
Thank you, Jennifer. It was a pleasure to be here and share.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Sharing Experiences to Get Good English. Don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories and tips on language learning. Until next time, keep learning and sharing.